It has been a whirlwind 3 months since he reassumed power. Within moments of being inaugurated, President Trump was signing executive orders, including declaring a national border emergency and overturning dozens of Biden-era measures. He's since announced a sweeping set of import tariffs, arguing that they'll allow the US to flourish economically, though market turmoil swiftly followed. And he's had a very public spat with Ukraine's President Zelensky, who he'd invited into the Oval Office to discuss attempts to end the war with Russia. Well, President Trump's speech, which he'll deliver shortly in Michigan, comes as Mark Carney, who's won a snap general election over the border in Canada, set out his plan to respond to the US president. We'll have more from Ottawa in a few minutes. But first, our North America editor, Sarah Smith, is in Michigan tonight. Sarah.
Yeah, where Donald Trump is coming to celebrate his 100 days, during which he has barely wasted a minute, taking a chainsaw to government spending, deporting migrants to a notorious mega prison and taking revenge on those he sees as his enemies. And he's done it all more like an emperor than an elected president, governing by fiat and ignoring anyone who tries to stop him. But his poll ratings are dismal. He was elected to fix the economy, and voters are worried that his trade tariffs are only going to make it worse. He seems excitable today, heading off to celebrate 100 days. But Donald Trump first had to adjust his trade tariffs again, making it less expensive to import car parts, while still insisting tariffs are one of his greatest achievements.
The economy would be certainly right up there, and I think it's doing great. We were losing billions and billions of dollars a day with trade, and now I have that down to a very low level, and soon we're going to be making a lot of money.
This Michigan diner has a surcharge on egg dishes because eggs still cost so much. Persistent high prices are one of the reasons why Donald Trump's approval rating at this point in his term is lower than any president for over 80 years. And he has warned voters that because of his trade tariffs, the economy may get worse before it gets better. But all these tariffs may put prices way up.
They may, but I think in the long run, I think it's going to be beneficial.
Do you think people believe it's worth some short-term economic pain to get results in the end?
I think so, I can't be any worse than the last 4 years. So.
Did you have different hopes for Donald Trump running the economy?
I did. I was hoping that some things he would approach things a little bit differently, seeing that he's a little seasoned coming into a second term. But I was hoping, but we're just treading water and seeing that things get better from here.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
During the last 100 days, the aggressive bullying of President Zelensky was both shocking and typical of how Donald Trump has been conducting himself, demanding other countries do exactly as he wants.
They charge us, we charge them less, so how can anybody be upset?
His global tariffs have caused chaos and confusion, with Americans worried they'll bring inflation and recession to the US. He's making law with the stroke of his pen, signing a record number of executive orders, bypassing Congress, ignoring court rulings and seizing more and more presidential power. Tonight is the first rally for Trump supporters since he returned to the White House, but he may have even bigger ambitions.
I'd like to be Pope. That would be my number one choice.
Sarah Smith, BBC News, Macomb County, Michigan.
Well, over the border in Canada, the former Bank of England governor, Mark Carney, is celebrating after his centre-left Liberal Party won an unlikely victory in the general election. Though with the Canadian broadcaster CBC tonight projecting the party will fall just short of being able to form a majority government. Well, the Liberal Party had long been trailing in the polls. 3 months ago, the Conservatives, with a pro-Trump leader, were well ahead. But that all changed when Donald Trump took office and said he would make Canada part of America and impose large tariffs. Canadians reacted with hostility to the idea, and it became the defining issue of the campaign. John Sudworth reports from Ottawa.
Canada has chosen its man for the moment. As it reels from President Trump's trade war, this is its answer.
We are supporting our friends and neighbors in the crosshairs of President Trump through a crisis that we did not create. We will fight back with everything we have to get the best deal for Canada.
Just a few months ago, Canada's Liberals faced electoral oblivion, 25 percentage points behind their rivals. Mr. Trump has changed all that with his repeated promise to make Canada America's 51st state.
We are Canadians. We are strong, we are proud, and we're not for sale, Mr. Trump.
The position that he took against Trump, I think, has been exactly what Canadians want, Canadians need right now. And that's probably the main thing that they're thinking about right now.
Canada's economy is feeling the heat from the tariffs. Suppliers at this business are already raising prices. This election was all about fighting back.
Both parties had like a pretty firm stand, and I think the outcome was good. And I think we're going to take a pretty harsh stand against the U.S., and I think the rest of the world is going to do the same.
For Canada's Conservatives, it was a disastrous night. Their populist leader lost his own seat as his perceived similarities to Mr. Trump suddenly became a liability.
Conservatives will work with the Prime Minister and all parties with the common goal of defending Canada's interests and getting a new trade deal that puts these tariffs behind us while protecting our sovereignty and the Canadian people.
The result is stark proof of Donald Trump's disruptive global impact. His interventions here have upended the political landscape.
It's one of the biggest election upsets in modern democratic history.
A political novice, a party written off in the polls, winning a seismic victory. Canadians have put their trust in a former central banker, a man who's never even run for elected office before. At a time of existential crisis, this country is also taking a step into the unknown. Well, Jane, despite the strength of this victory, it does now look as if Mr. Carney will not have the parliamentary seats he needs to form a government in his own right. There may be a sense of something of a positive result in that for many Canadians. Given the nature of the crisis, it will at least test the claim of politicians on all sides that the key virtue needed at the moment is unity.
John, thank you, John Sudworth. Well, Mark Carney has said his country deserves respect from the US and that it'll only enter trade and security talks with President Trump on Canada's terms. Our economics editor, Faisal Islam, has been speaking to him.
Faisal, Prime Minister. Great. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Mark Carney, once the crisis governor of the Bank of England, who stabilised markets after Brexit and helped rebuild Britain's banks, now faces something bigger. A US president attacking his economy and who says he wants his country.
What will your message be to Donald Trump down south?
Well, it will be the same message that I've given him directly and I've been saying publicly, which is that we're two sovereign nations. There is a partnership to be had, an economic and security partnership to be had. It's going to be a very different one than we've had in the past. But also, we've got lots of other things to do. We can build out our economy here at home. We are in the process of building our relationships more deeply in Europe, elsewhere around the world. So we'll have a partnership on our terms. There's a win-win possibility there, but on our terms, not on their terms.
You mentioned a moment ago that you were wanting to do more deals with reliable trade partners. You said Europe. What about the UK?
What about the UK?
There was something on the table. There was an issue around cheese. Do you think you can do a Canada-UK free trade agreement? Surely, it's low-hanging fruit.
One would think. Look, I mean, it's one of these situations where I forget the exact figure, but it's 95-97% of our trade is effectively tariff-free between Canada and the United Kingdom. Although that's slightly more narrow way of looking at it, because we could expand the level of integration between our countries, like-minded countries. You think about defense partnerships, and those conversations have just begun. So there's a lot that we can do, and of course it's in our interest to diversify. We're definitely going to do that. We have many options. The UK is one.
Your Majesty. The Prime Minister's answer is to develop a club of countries fed up with the tariff chaos to make President Trump think again. He wants Commonwealth ally Britain to be a key part. Faisal Islam, BBC News in Ottawa.
Donald Trump had also said he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. 100 days into his presidency, the fighting in the country is as fierce as ever. Russia has announced a 3-day ceasefire for next week, but the White House says a more permanent deal is close. Our correspondent Anna Foster is in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Anna.
Jane, in an underground shelter tonight, there's been a drone attack here in the last hour. Really not the sort of action that speaks to an impending ceasefire, isn't it? So what does that deal that the US has put on the table actually look like? Well, according to leaks, it would see Russia keep the territory that it's currently occupying in eastern Ukraine, and the US would de facto accept that as Russian. Russia would also give up its ambition to take and control the rest of these 4 regions. And in return, the US would recognise Russian sovereignty over Crimea, which it illegally annexed in 2014. It is a position which is clearly less favourable towards Ukraine than the one held by the Biden administration. So what about President Trump's perceived ceasefire deal? I asked people in one of those regions whether they would be prepared to accept it. It's a flame that never stops burning. In Zaporizhia's huge steelworks and across this region, the longing to return home is acute for millions of Ukrainians. So is the desire to end the war with Russia, but everyone has a different price they're willing to pay.
All my relatives are in the occupied territory. How do I feel about it? At first, I didn't want to give up territory to Russia. But now, if only the war would end. If it ends on those territories, then let them take them.
The drone and missile attacks beat a regular rhythm. Many people don't have faith that a ceasefire would hold. And standing here in the heart of the steelworks, we are less than 40 kilometers away from the current active front line. But this place is so important to Ukrainian industry, to Ukrainian morale, and it is a key Russian target. At the front, soldiers like Vitaly are risking their lives for their land. After that sacrifice, he doesn't want to see it given away.
How can you come to the modern life, to the modern age, and take someone's house away? As a soldier from the occupied territory who left my home, friends, relatives, both living and dead, and went to defend our native Ukraine on Ukrainian territory, we cannot agree to give up our territories.
Whatever the decision made now, it'll impact the next generation. Natalia's childhood home is right on the dividing line. She knows her son Tim may never be able to visit there again.
Of course, it's not the best idea to divide our country, but now a lot of people died every day, every minute, and I don't know how to stop it. We need to stop it somehow.
I can't even imagine how they will feel. They're already struggling to survive there. Then their own countries that they are trying to survive to go back to, it just gives up on them. It just feels awful.
There's no choice that will suit everyone here. More than 3 years after the Russian invasion, this ceasefire proposal feels like a fresh battle to protect the soul of Ukraine. Anna Foster, BBC News, Zaporizhia.
And let's just return to our North America editor, Sarah Smith. War continuing very much in Ukraine. Sarah, so much of the world affected by the last 100 days, as we've seen. What are your thoughts about what might lie ahead?
Well, on Ukraine, there are some pretty stark warnings from the administration tonight that Donald Trump is losing patience and that the US is perfectly prepared to walk away from mediating those peace talks if they don't get concrete proposals from both Russia and Ukraine very, very soon. I said earlier that Donald Trump had dismal poll ratings. If we take a look now at the rally that he is due to attend just down the road from me a little later on this evening, you will see that he still has a core of very enthusiastic supporters who want him to carry on with his radical agenda. That's going to include big tax cuts he's hoping to deliver soon, and carrying on with his aggressive push against any sort of equal opportunity policies or affirmative action programs, because he wants to remake the culture of America as well as its economy and as well as its government. And next month he's heading to Saudi Arabia. He's very hopeful that he can persuade them to normalise relations with Israel, and of course he is threatening Iran if they don't get rid of their nuclear program. So he's still got a big agenda ahead of him.